So now I'll hand you to tonight's speaker, who offered to stand in once the AGM is finished. Roger Davies, who's going to talk about DNA and Stonehenge.
Well, yeah, that's what you broadcast or not announce, that's what it has to cover, isn't it? Like Stonehenge. Everybody knows I've written a book. But I believe it's an important book, and there's a lot of information in it which won't be covered here, quite simply because I've got too much going on, and there's a lot more coming out. The image is out of a 1959 Ministry Works publication, Stonehenge and Avery. It was produced by Professor Atkinson of Cardiff University. The image is actually Crown copyright, but it's 1959, so they've had it 50 years. Crown copyright is 50 years, 75 years for most other publications. Hopefully the book was simple in outlining how there are many misconceptions about the past. The root problem is people are underestimating the abilities of people in the past. That's the commercial for the start. So we've got Stonehenge when recorded, and what's important here is what I'm trying to say about it. This is a revelation of competent mathematicians constructed a desperately needed astronomical observatory, and that word there hides a multitude of sins. The work was done 5,200 years ago, which is quite a considerable time, 3,200 BC. The initial work was the outer mound with a rough ditch dug inside it, which wasn't complete. But the essence is this work was based on a Mesolithic yard. That's the pendulum ticking away in the corner there, and it's got a period of oscillation of 1.8 seconds. So what you'll find is that 100 oscillations on that pendulum is 3 minutes. Now that's very precise, it's very reliable, and it's quite prolonged in action. Now this was used for observing the sun and basically recording the Earth's rotation under the sun. The last comment here is the almost joker line, the answer's 42. Everybody laugh at that because it's the catch line out of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. People on Earth created a computer, the greatest computer ever, and said, right, what we ask it? Well, what's the answer to life, the universe, everything? The computer said, right, I'll get to work on that. Can you do so? And so, no, I'm starting, so I'm not going to finish. How long is it going to take? About 2 million years. So that's the joke about 40, the answer 42. But we're not supposed to talk about religion, but I'll make an exception here for one very specific reason. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the 1950s. It's alleged that certain of them were in existence and in storage in the Vatican from the start of the Catholic Church. They've been opened and translated, but the crunch line is, verse 77, Jesus said, in the light is over all things, I am all, from me all come forth, and to be all attained. Split a piece of wood, I'm there, lift up a stone, you will find me there. So, that effectively negates churches and religions as organizations and puts individuals in direct contact with their faiths and beliefs. So that's quite a profound statement. Right, this image is my reworking of the Ministry Works plan of Stonehenge. And the crucial aspect for this evening's talk is the outer mound. The reason for that is that that mound was created and was used on its own for some period between 25 and 100 years, and was later superseded by a larger inner mound, just so. The question of 42 is particularly relevant and is tied in to the outer mound. We'll come to that later. About 10-15 years ago, there was talk of the Bible Code, and people are trying to find meanings hidden in it. And one of the things I did was look at the structure of the Torah, and it's written in 42 lines. Now it's written as a historical document, and how much is allegorical and how much is fact is quite challenging work. Now 42 is prime numbers 1 times 2 times 3 times 7. If we develop that one step further, we come up to the next prime number, which is 11, which gives us 462. Now, what this gives us is a table starting off where the numbers from 1 to 42 are written across the top row, and the second row is 43 onwards. Everybody knows the prime numbers are a product of 6 plus or minus 1. Obviously not all products are 6 plus or minus 1 are prime numbers, but all prime numbers conform to that configuration. And what it boils down to is that while we've got 7 columns of 6, the 6 is outlined in blue. You can't really see them, because they're just too small. So we get 7 columns of 6, 7 6 is 42. And what we actually find is that we only have 10 columns of primes. Now the reason for this is that while we've got number 7 there, if we add 42 to it, we're adding a product of 7. So every time we add 42 to it, it's a multiple of 7. A similar thing happens with 35. 5 7 to 35, so you add 42 to that, we've got another column of the products of 7. Now, it just so happens that there are 12 columns, as I just said. It's also a simple fact that if we start off with one of the starter line numbers, then you can only ever have prime numbers in that column from that source of origin. Now, I've questioned whether this is actually tied into DNA, because with thousands of stereotypes, there are trains which carry through and nobody knows. I don't know. It's something now that I've actually thrown out to as far as many people as possible. I can see something. I can only see it going so far. Perhaps somebody else can see something with it. We've never been taught this, so it doesn't count. All the prime numbers continue in the same columns and go on and on forever. Now, whether this is again to the structure of matter, whether it's to the structure of bodies or mass, I just don't know. Converting the rectangular table into a rotary arrangement, putting 42 lines on the centre, gives us the prime numbers coming out in 1, 3, 5, nothing in 7. So, we end up with a two-dimensional array of numbers where the primes are coming out in certain directions. Now, the world isn't a two-dimensional object, it's a three-dimensional object, and I've just literally considered whether this is tied in to the production of buckyballs. You've got cancer growths, you've got all sorts of growths which take this setup. I'm just putting something forward which nobody appears to have considered. The work also includes 5,200 years ago the use of 3 systems of angular measurement. Degrees, sine of 45 is 0.707, about half root 2. Sine of 50 in grads is 0.707. Very few people are familiar with grads. And then in radians, 2 pi radians in circles, so that display should be better put like that. For those who are not familiar with grads, and as an engineer who worked all my life with machinery and different things, I wasn't familiar with grads. It's something I didn't find out until I was 66, I believe. So I'm not trying to be condescending. A grad is a 400th part of a circle. So it does exist, it's described there, degrees were there, grads there, and radians up there. Grads were used in the Islamic faith. This is called a Qibla compass, used to look at the world around you and find the direction for prayer, pointing to Mecca. So the Islamic faith started about the 7th century, I believe. I'm not a historian, but I will get things wrong. But the crunch is that we've got a 360-degree system and a 400. The 400 is described there on that bottom scale, which you see slightly better there. So this is the 60s sight level. So we're looking at concepts which are in use today, unfamiliar to many today, and yet were used, I'm saying, 5,200 years ago. Now, this gentleman, Professor Gerald S. Hawkins, he had a PhD in radio astronomy at Manchester, 52. He worked at Jordan Bank with Bernard Lovell. He was a professor of astronomy at Boston University, Massachusetts, and the dean of Dickinson College, and he was science advisor to the American government. In 1965, he came to Britain on a furlough, and he carried research on Stonehenge with Professor Atkinson, and wrote Stonehenge Decoded. What was written about his book are these credits, and I've only got one criticism of one, and that's the Time magazine one. Professor Hawkins is a bone to pick with historians of Mr. 700 the ancient world. Where I criticise him is in the choice of a remarkable achievement of primitive man. Now, if he said ancient man, I'd been with him 100%, but the work proves that they were certainly not primitive. So these are reviews that are actually on the book's cover. So the first builders made Stonehenge a relatively simple enclosure, and the area outlined by two banks of the ditch entered from the northeast to the standing Stonehenge site. Although simple in design, it probably imposing spectacle. Its outer bank, now nearly obliterated, formed a true circle, fairly true circle, some 380 foot in diameter, 8 foot wide, and 2 or 3 foot high. So we're talking about a bank that sort of height, 380 foot diameter, 190 foot radius, so 60 yards radius from the central observer. The ditch itself was just within that outer bank. As presently seen, the ditch is much deeper along the eastern half, and that's because it was excavated in the 1920s. It goes to say it was not a proper ditch at all. There's a ring of separate pits, sometimes not connected, but breaking down the excavated portions between. Now, there's two reasons for that. They probably hit in good soil and good white chalk at depth, but equally well, by creating a series of quarries, then they could walk from the centre of the circle to the outside, wouldn't clamber in and out of a ditch. So they were practical people trying to create a practical observatory. Basically, a big protractor. Nothing more elaborate, but a big protractor. Now, the crunch is that this was created, as I said, 25 to 100 years after the outer mound. So it's somewhere between 1 and 4 generations, or even 5. So who knows what, was lost in the interim. The inner mound must have presented an absolutely awe-inspiring barrier, so it's quite impressive. The Earth is no great spheroid, everybody knows that. This is an Excel graph produced from a CAD drawing which I've made showing the polar radius as a circle surrounded by the ellipse shape of the Earth with a 13.5 mile extra on the radius at the equator. No apologies for speaking in miles. I'm talking about a system that's 8,000 years old, but one of the features that I've noticeable from this is the area of greatest change is between 40 and 60 degrees latitude. Now this is done in co-latitude, which is counting 0 at the North Pole and 90 at the equator. That's an illustration of the North Pole at 90. 90 is in the turquoise circle, and the equatorial radius is shown in the mauve outside it. I've got one site marked up here, Mainketty. I don't know if anybody knows what it means, but it's a Welsh name, the original name for King Arthur's Stone. Now, Arthur's Stone is what is commonly called, Ardd Wir, however, in Welsh, is ploughman. So what I'm saying about Arthur's Stone is it's designed to act as a guide to the pole star via the plough, and equally well, Mainketty is an observation being made from north of it through on the autumn equinox. However, what I've done is with Mainketty, I've shown 3 latitudes, 47, 51.36 and 58. There's another one actually, 67, but that's off this scale. And what I'm saying categorically is that 5,300, 5,500 years ago, whatever it was, because it hasn't been precisely defined, the site of King Arthur's Stone at top of Cembryn was at 47 north. So we had a massive switch at that time, which took Britain 4.5 degrees further north. All historical documentation seems to verify this in the cooling down of the climate. This is verified by different plant types found in the ground. It's something that can be substantiated. It's also substantiated quite dramatically by the record of the white sea iceman found in the Ottstal Alps between Italy and Austria. That's the story, although it's sound. In 1950, whatever it was, Charles Hapgood wrote a book called The Path of the Pole, forward by Einstein, who says he set forth cautiously, comprehensively, the extraordinary material advocating a change of the poles. The proposal of shifts of the pole was put forward, and the last 2 poles that he refers to in his book are a pre-50 BP pole. BP is before the present, and that's supposed to be 1950. That is a pretty stupid system, but the geologists worked to that, and it's rougher than BC, and deliberately so, because it's designed to give an indication of a time. So anyway, he described a pre-50 BP pole and a pre-17 BP pole, the latter in Hudson Bay. Now, the pre-50 BP pole is shown literally at 67, we're at 67 north. We're in the Arctic Circle. Britain is in the mid of Ice Age. Now, what I'm saying is that certainly, I'm not disputing any of the evidence of the ice, but it had nothing to do with the global ice age. We were in the Arctic Circle. So that's my contention, and Hapgood's back in the 1950s. That pole was actually just off Norway, 300 miles off Norway. From there, the pole moved to the Hudson Bay in Canada, with the result that Britain ended up right down here. I won't go into any further than that, and movements in between. This is a gentleman called Flavio Barbiero, a retired admiral, Italian and NATO. He's written a 12-page mathematical paper on the mechanics of the move, and he actually talks about a pole shift around 8,000 years ago. This is a mineral guide, and what is shown are 2 paths from European and American rocks. The path of the pole starting and then travelling through to where this was really at now. But this book is 40 odd years old. That's showing the time scale that they were talking of, and we talk about this ended up 1 million or 10 million years ago, whatever it was. Now, putting Hapgood's pole in context, it's at that point there, just off the north of Norway. Britain then is actually inside the Arctic Circle. Now, the move was to be from there to there, but bear in mind this is a pole 50,000 years ago, and that's a pole 17,000 years ago. There's no data on the in-betweens, so whether the move was an instantaneous massive shunt or was a progressive, I don't know. However, what I'm trying to show you here is the overall result. and we've got 2 pivot points there and there, which for the Hudson Bay to come to the pole means that it all drops down. I can't find geologists who are prepared to talk about this, so they don't be associated, so I'm a pariah. So we've jumped forward now to 8,000 years ago. Mine Ketty, I've used as a point of reference throughout, so that is a simple fact, was at 47 north. 5,300 years ago, whatever it was, it jumped north by 4.5 degrees. I've said it, and that's what it works out. Right, what evidence do we have for that? There's not much, but there is enough. Avebury is a massive stonework village, 50 nautical miles north of Stonehenge. This is the book, the Stonehenge and Avebury book, 3 shillings. And then through decimalisation, we printed it, it came out at 20 pence. So, so that's one of the instances of decimalisation being a bit more than a direct conversion. The stones in Avebury are quite substantial. They're certainly not whimsy. There's a lot of effort gone into those, and to date, nobody's been able to make any sense of it. So that's a plan of Avebury, which I say is 70 miles north of Stonehenge. Now that's a site, it's not a very good photograph, but it's put in deliberately because it sums up, to some extent, the first time I ever saw King Arthur Stone or Mine Ketty. It was a school trip in 1954, and visibility was less than that, it was 20 yards. It was a terrible day. What can be noticed is that the top of the stone is stepped, and it's slid down the side of a supporting pedestal here. Looking south, so from the other side, what we'll see is that the stone is lifted off 2 support pedestals. It's pivoting on this one, and it's gone down the side of the front or the southern support pin. You can see the face of that stone has gone down the side of the support pin, where it's broken off. So I'll say no more about that at the moment, but we will certainly come back to it. This is believed to be the first aerial photograph of Stonehenge taken in the late 1800s. And the crunch here, from, as the note says on the side, is keep riding the donut, not the hole. The outer mound is that thin section there. The black is a ditch, and the bigger mass is the inner mound. So that was created 25 to 100 years before this. So we're looking at that literally in isolation. Inside the circles got orby holes. They've been proven to be suitable and practical means of tide prediction. The inner and outer edges of the main mound, which is the one inside, were the first to be interpreted, and they were found to have 360 and 400 yards circumferences, Mesolithic yards. So Mesolithic astronomers had a working knowledge of advanced metal maths, including square roots and Pythagorean triangles. So I haven't come to that, but it's there. The measures I proposed are 360 and 400 for the inner circle, and 450 and 462 for the outer circle. These are Mesolithic yards circumferences. Anyway, what it boils down to is that Stonehenge mound, 5,200 years old, was a precise mathematical structure. Hawkins' dimensions are put down in red, 320-foot diameter. The mound's inner circumference is 360 Mesolithic yards, and the outer circumference of that inner mound is 400. The outer circle, which is the one we're predominantly trying to focus on, had an inner circumference of 450 Mesolithic yards and an outer circumference of 462. Right, what tools are you? 77. That happened to be the verse number of the Book of Thomas. So what's it about? 77 was a mnemonic, an A to Mary. It wasn't quite right. It was too big. 76 was too small. What about somewhere in the middle? Right. Half of 76 is 38. So 76.3 has been taken to give a very useful working tool. Now, if you imagine striking an arc with a radius of 77 and traverse one unit along the periphery, then we end up with a an angle, tan minus 1 over 77 is 0.744059. That's pretty close to 3/4 degree. Tan to minus 1 of 1 over 76.38, however, is 0.750098,273 degrees. Now it's a very good 3/4 degree. We're talking Neolithic here. Getting back to another religion, this is the Hindu. They had a symbol called the Om, which I looked up and said, well, from that, 3 is the key. Now, with the Earth rotating 15 degrees per hour, 3 minutes being 1/20th of an hour, in 3 minutes the Earth rotates 15 degrees divided by 20, 3/4 of a degree. This pendulum back here, set up in 100 swings, gives us 3 minutes. So that is the tie between the movement of a beam of sunlight or a shadow in a darkened cave and figuring out how to set an accurate measure. So we've got a 3/4 degree angle set and a timer for 3 minutes. One the same thing. Now, it's been working out in calculators at home or what have you, but the numbers are easy to remember. 2,000 Mesolithic yards equals 1 mile. Their yard was divided into 32 inches. The book goes into this and explains how. And it is a fact. But what is 32? It's 2 to the power of 5. So, this is very basic stuff. And it just so happens that 25 Mesolithic yards is a chain, whereas today is 22 of our yards. So their chain, furlong and mile were identical to ours today. For a swinging pendulum with no elliptical oscillation, the formula is correct. T equal to 2 pi times the square root of L over G. No matter what the units here, as long as they're consistent. If L is in inches, you measure G in inches. In this case, it was using metric, because that's what popped up on the search. But G is actually a variable, and it varies with radius from the Earth's centre, and is taken as an average or a working unit today. Now, one thing I hadn't considered till recently was the burial chamber at Parker Place in Park Mill, having been set out in the bottom of the valley, not far from the sea level, and basically being in the right position for, an accurate reference for G. That Excel formula is put down and we work out the time of one oscillation is 1.8 seconds. In the Salisbury Museum is a stone described as a mason, a stone called gneiss, G-N-E-I-S. Now, I haven't been able to handle it or work with it and find its precise centre of gravity. It's described as 40 mil wide. The length of a Mesolithic yard in millimetres is 804.672. So the sine of 40 over 804 is 2.849 degrees. So it's very much like 3 degrees. So in other words, it's a reference to 3 being the answer. Well, this is a map first published in 1913. And that's what makes it really remarkable. Now, it was republished in 2009 in a book by the Council of British Archaeology called Europe's Lost World. But the relevance of it there, we've shown Oriental links in Stonehenge, and there's no doubt in my mind that Lebanon was the origin of most of our data, and there was regular trade between Britain and Lebanon. Lebanon was the gophers for Egypt. Anything they wanted, the Lebanese got it. Now, one of the things that is particularly prominent is the island of St Kilda, which is 40 miles off the northwest coast of Scotland. The question being, was this work done when Britain was at 47 north or at 51 north? Everything's pointed to the fact that this work was done now when Britain was at 47 north. Stonehenge was built when it was at 51. My guess was at 51. But what is particularly prominent about St Kilda, it's a pretty remote spot. There's sheep there, which originated in Lebanon, and they've been on St Kilda for 5,500 years. So they came from the Lebanon. This is authenticated as being an original breed. That's part of the island. It's a pretty remote spot. When these photographs were taken, I don't know, but it's a pretty rough place to live, you know, hard place to live is a better description. And that's some photographs taken at the turn of the century. That's the island today. But having said that the sheep came from the Lebanon, this is a boat constructed in Tyre. The formations give rise to the term phoenix, rising from the ashes. They went out, they did things, they got knocked, they rebuilt and they plugged on. That's a boat actually at sea, 60 miles from the last point. It's a solid boat, nothing primitive about it, clinker or what have you, or tied. The timbers are laid out with vertical tenons and then literally locked together and pinned to the inside of the boat. So you've got substantial boats, Cedars of Lebanon are legendary, and how much trade you did between Britain is certainly went over thousands of years. So Britain, post 8,000 years ago, shifted up to where it is now, 51 North. And what I'm just trying to do is to present a book out showing the slot in much greater detail. Right, this is the really important bit, I believe. Clement Reid, Submerged Forest, the book is out on the internet. I checked yesterday. I had a download from the University of Los Angeles, but it's out there now in many formats. It's only available as a PDF, but it's available in EPUBs, all sorts of formats now. But his words, written in 1913, knowledge can't be divided into compartments, each given a definite name and allotted to a different student. There are and always must be branches of knowledge in which several sciences meet or have an interest, and these are somewhat liable to be neglected. Those words are written in 1913. Why didn't this work get greater acceptance? Well, 1914, with the outbreak of World War I. Validating the 8,000 BP shift, there was a massive earth slide in the continental shelf of Norway, which I believe is caused by meltdown of sub-ocean floor methane ice. The real hard fact is that 3,500 cubic kilometres of soil collapsed of the continental shelf into the sea. It hit a massive tsunami across Britain, and whether it was the cause of a pole shift or the result of a pole shift is a bit, and it's under review then, shall I say, by me anyway. Another hard fact is that just east of Bath is a place called the West Kennett Burial Chamber. The fields happen to be ploughed east-west with GPS and 08 degrees true. This is the inner chamber looking out. There were burials there up to 3,700 years ago. That's as planned, and we've shown a snaky appearance in the central chamber, indicating that the fact that they've been looking at sunrises and things were changing. So that's the crunch on that. We left this illustration at pre-11,500 years ago, earlier on. Pole is there, and what we're saying is it changes to that one. So it flipped down a little bit. This is the pre-8,000 or 7.9 kVp pole, prior to shift to the pre-5k pole. So that is, the 5k pole is up there. So what actually happens is that the Earth kicked down and gives us a new pole. And each time, every country in the globe is getting a different latitude. So the last shift of all was the pre-5K3 BP, and that ended up shifting Africa and Europe north, and with Britain north 4.5 degrees. We looked at Kembryn earlier on, looking at the stone. Now this photo was taken with a telephoto lens from the south side of the road. And what we're actually looking for isn't that step there, but beyond that is a hill beyond there called Mynydd Stuffley Carn, mountain of the fixed cairn. Mynydd and mountain, everyone knows that. Stuffley is stapled or nailed. So that's a pretty good name and a pretty specific name. And this is another view of Mount Ketty. What I'm trying to outline is the fact that the shape of the stone is replicating Cwm Ivy top. You can see the difference there now, this 30th of May photo, so the sun's gone past it. But what I'm trying to say is that that alignment was a solstice alignment. If I'm right on this, then this ties up my claim that 5,500 years ago we were at 47 north. Now how do I get to that one? It's fairly simple. The width of the landing on the stone matches the sun's diameter. So that is what I believe the stone was created for. Lining them up, we have a north from Manketti up to Mynystaflecan, and that's at 354 degrees. Sunset is at 299. Now the difference between those two is 55 degrees. So there's the line to Mynystaflecan. There's the terminal point of Mynystaflecan. Putting mapping software on it and working it out dot by dot by dot, it comes up to 1,000 Mesolithic yard circumference, within feet. Now that site, I believe, is possibly going back 12,000 years. And it ties up with things in Carnac where people lived on the seashore when they could, and then took refuge in high ground when they thought it was necessary. Basically what happened in South Wales, we had Mynystaflecan there, and that line straight through takes us to a place called Swansea. Now this is the place where St David has supposedly did a lot of preaching. So this is, 3,000 years after Stonehenge, but we were talking about mapping and the earth around us. Now, it just so happens that the line from Llanfihangel there, the midwinter solstice sunrise, or equivalently the summer solstice sunset, as viewed from Stonehenge. And the best thing I can do is leave it at that for the time being, because it's quite an involved topic, and I'll leave it at that.
Thanks for that, Ron.
Any questions?